and then take you back to the beautiful screen. All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Texas Leadership Network Brown Bag Boardroom. I can thank myself for the lovely long name. Regardless of what we call it, it's all about education and information. We have a network of 10 coaches in the Texas area that have come together to collaborate on topics to bring back to our business community. And I'm super excited about our speakers today. Mr. Mark Steele and Eddie Ross are going to talk about some really deep topics today and things that really mean something to our businesses coming out of or even being in the middle of this COVID-19 quarantine. Some people are still not working, some people are overworked, and some people just aren't sure what's next. And Mark and Eddie are going to talk to us about that today. So Mark, if you would like to take over the screen, I'm going to let you come up first. So Mark Steele, if you would introduce yourself, tell everybody where you are located in Texas, and go ahead and get started.
Okay, great. Well, excellent. Thank you, Tricia. And just to grab the screen here and see if you see the universal laws of mental mastery.
We do. It's yes. Beautiful.
Yes, I am Mark Steele, and I'm proud to be part of the Texas Leadership Network, one of the 10 here located in Texas. The focal point really is throughout the world, and we have a nice group here in Texas. And so I'm pleased to be here. I'm located in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and hopefully my dog is not going to be barking for long. So anyhow, that said, we start off and talk about the universal laws of mental mastery. What the heck is that? Universal laws of mental mastery. What is that? Why are we talking about it? Why talk about it right now? And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get this situated in the right place here so I can advance my screen. You know, the reason we're talking about it now, people, they're afraid and they resort to doing nothing during these days. And it's like they just bury their heads in the sand. And the spoiler alert, there's always going to be something going on in the world, which brings us to the natural laws that we're going to discuss. Now, if you take a golf ball and you drop it out of your hand, what's going to happen? It's going to fall to the ground 100% of the time. If you fall off a ladder, you're going to fall to the ground 100% of the time. And this is because of the physical natural law, the law of gravity. And it doesn't matter whether you believe in gravity or not, it still exists. You're still going to fall to the ground. And the same is true with the mental natural laws that we're about to discuss. And the first easy for me to say, first mental law that we're going to discuss is the law of control. And the law of control states that you feel positive or negative about yourself to the degree that you feel that you're in control. And this photo may bring back some fond or maybe not so fond memories when you were either teaching your teenager to drive, or maybe you remember when you were a teenager learning to drive. And so that said, if you look at this photo, who is in control and who's not? And hopefully you might agree that they both seem to be out of control right now. And needless to say that the lack of control is one of the major causes of stress in today's world. Oh no, the dreaded traffic jam. We've all been there too. The question is, how do you respond during a traffic jam? When you're stuck in traffic, do you get angry? Are you frustrated? Can you really control the situation? Well, no, the traffic jam is there, so you really can't control the situation. Coronavirus. There's no getting around it. It's here. And like the traffic jam, you can't really control the fact that it is here. You can't always control your environment. However, the thing you can control is the way that you act and the way you think about a situation. Your thoughts affect your feelings, which then affect your behaviors and actions, and ultimately affects your results. And what I like to tell people during these days, one of the most common things is, don't be a thermometer. After all, what does the thermometer do? It reflects the current condition. If you look at this thermometer, it looks like 70 degrees. If it were 50 degrees in there, it'd say 50, 80 degrees, 80. So don't be a thermometer, because it simply reflects the current environment. I want you to be that thermostat on the right, because as you look at the thermostat, you know what the thermostat does. You control your environment, and you could either increase or decrease the temperature to be whatever you desire. And as a thermostat, once again, you control your actions, your results, and ultimately, you're controlling your own destiny. Now, going back to the traffic jam incident that we discussed, you can't control the traffic, but you can be a thermostat and control how you respond to that condition. You can take the time stuck in traffic to be frustrated, angry, or you could listen to positive self-help audiobooks or reconnect with an old friend, make a phone call. You're stuck there anyway. The coronavirus, as we said, it's here, and there's not much that you can do about it, but you can be a thermostat and control how you respond to the condition, which we're going to talk about more in just a minute. The bottom line is take action, do something, take action to regain control. I love what Walt Disney said. He said, the way to get started is to quit talking and just begin doing. Just get going, do something. And now let's talk about the law of cause and effect. It says that for every effect in your life, there's a specific cause. Everything happens for a reason. There are no accidents. Now, similar to Newton's physical laws of momentum that are shown here, there are specific causes for success and specific causes for failure. And if you're not happy with those results, just trace it back to the causes and change them. And once again, don't sit around doing nothing. Don't be a victim. We want you to be victorious. You've heard it said before, whatsoever a man soweth, so shall he reap. Well, whatever you reap today really is a result of what you planted in the past. And if you want to change your future, you need to plant different seeds today. Well, one thing is for certain, you can't plant corn and then expect to get tomatoes. Now, we spoke about the law of control and how you need to take action using the law of cause and effect. And one of my favorite examples is a person, she owned a bakery and she was facing the doom and gloom of bankruptcy. And my goodness, she had all these wedding cake orders that were canceled. Things were looking really dreary because of the coronavirus, the quarantine. She chose to not just sit around and be a victim. She used her creative energy, her super consciousness, and came up with an idea to start producing. Here we go, ready for it, wait for it, producing. Yes, you got a toilet paper cake. That's brilliant. I'd love to have one of those. You may not have a wedding cake, but everyone needs a toilet paper cake. And now her only problem is she's trying to keep up with demand. There's so many orders coming in. She chose to be a thermostat, not the thermometer. She chose to be victorious and not a victim. And in another example, a restaurant owner was trying to think of ways to boost the carry-out business. And once again, restaurants are closed during this coronavirus quarantine. So it's only carry-out business. And so what he started doing was having his servers all dressed up in costumes, everything from shark suits to Star Wars and just some crazy costumes. And customers wanted to buy from this restaurant just so they could see the person coming out to bring the food, how they would be dressed. And so his business took off from there. And once again, the law of cause and effect really can bring one in line with the law of control. And next we have the law of belief. The law of belief states, whatever you believe with feeling becomes reality. And the more strongly and intensely you believe in something to be true, the more likely it is to become. And your beliefs, they can give you tunnel vision sometimes as you focus on what you like for the better and also for the worse. Now, you don't believe what you see, but rather you see what you already believe. And one can either have a positive or a negative view. And there's no need to respond to me, but ask yourself, what is your view right now? Is it positive or is it negative? And the biggest roadblock and obstacles in the law of belief are your self-limiting beliefs. And they may cause you to see things that aren't really true. In fact, most of your self-limiting beliefs are not true. You may say, I can't lose weight. I can't learn a foreign language. I can't stop smoking. I can't stop drinking. Speaking in front of an audience, there's no way. I get so nervous when I'm making a presentation. I can't. The words are self-limiting and they go right out of your mouth into your subconscious. And your subconscious then responds. You can't lose weight? Okay, I can support you on that. I'm going to make sure that there's no way that you're going to lose weight or learn a foreign language or stop smoking or whatever it is. Your subconscious is so powerful. So be careful of the words that come out and what you feed it. You know, I love Henry Ford's quote, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Let me say that again. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Next, we have the law of expectations. And the law of expectations says, whatever you expect with confidence becomes your own self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, have you ever noticed that when you're in the biggest hurry, that's when you seem to hit every single red light? It's so frustrating. And that could be because of the law of expectation. You're expecting to hit the red light. Or it could also be the law of attraction, which we're going to be discussing next. And with the law of expectation, you get out of life. What you get out of life is not what you want, but usually it's rather what you expect. You're like a fortune teller when you talk about your own life, both for the positive and for the negative. And there was an experiment conducted by Dr. Rosenthal in the San Francisco Bay Area. And here's what he did. Dr. Rosenthal, he had the principal call in 3 teachers into his office, and he told them that since they were so outstanding, they were the best teachers, that he was going to give them the best students. Yeah, they were assigned the brightest and best students in their classrooms. And because they were the brightest teachers with the best students, that he expected the IQs and the scores to be 20 to 30% higher than all of the other classes, not just in that school, but in the school district. And there was a guideline that they had to follow, though. These 3 teachers were instructed not to tell any of the students or their families that they were in this special class because they were special. And so the teachers, they gleefully accepted the challenge, and these teachers gave their kids their full attention, knowing how bright they were. And the results after the school year were as expected. Scores in all 3 classes were 20 to 30% higher than all other classes in the school district. And the 3 school teachers were then called back into the principal's office. And they were then told that they were part of an experiment. And the kids in their classes really were not gifted. They were not special, but rather they were just chosen at random. Well, the teachers were surprised to hear that because the kids seemed so bright. And then they thought, well, the amazing improvement, it must have been because we're the best teachers. It's what was called double-blind experiment. The teachers were then informed that, well, actually, you too were just selected at random. There's nothing really special about you. And the expectations were what drove the results. So think about that next time you give some expectations to your kids, your colleagues, to anyone you come in contact with. Your expectations are so powerful. Now let's talk about the law of attraction. This is one of my favorite laws. And it says that if you really do something, if you really do become, you really do become somewhat like a living magnet, and not just like this guy. And I'm not sure what's up with this guy. He really is some type of living magnet. But what I'm talking about is whatever you expect with confidence becomes your own self-fulfilling prophecy. What you get out of life is not what you get out of life is not what you want in life, but rather what you expect and what you attract. And whether for the good or bad, you attract people and situations into your life by your thoughts and by your words. Here, Brian Tracy said, think continually about what you want, not about the things you fear. Your thoughts are things. You have them, and then they have you. Change your thinking, change your life. Create the mental equivalent of what you want in life. And this is really a variation of the law of cause and effect, or you reap what you sow. And there was a great philosopher that said, sow a thought and you reap an act. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap the character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. Ah, yes, this is beautiful Tierra East condominium in Deerfield Beach. If you've ever seen this, it's fantastic. It's in Deerfield Beach, Florida. And we moved from Los Angeles to Florida in 2001. And we relocated in Parkland, Florida, which is 20 minutes from the beach. And we would occasionally go to the beach and we would head to Deerfield Beach. I remember looking at this condominium complex, thinking it, and then saying, I would really love to live there. Now, several years later, I did purchase a condominium on Deerfield Beach. And it wasn't until months after that that I remembered those thoughts and those words that I put out into the universe and my desire to live there. I picked the exact building that I had dreamed about years earlier, and the law of attraction brought it to me. And it sounds kind of weird, but it actually happened. Let me give you another example. For whatever reason, when I was working as a production manager in Canada at Goodyear Tire, I said, and then I put it out in the universe, I'd really love to live in a penthouse in Brazil. Yeah, I know it's a really random statement, and it was really weird when shortly after I said that, and thinking that, I received a call from the vice president of the international division, who asked me if I'd like to be the sales and marketing coordinator for the launching of a new tire line in Brazil. Wow, who'd have thought? Well, and in this photo, first of all, this is not my pool. This was not the penthouse. So we did move to Brazil, and we did get a penthouse in Brazil. And this is not the penthouse because you see the ocean in the background. And we were actually located in Sao Paulo, which is landlocked. And so lesson learned for the next time, hindsight, I guess I should have included the ocean part in my desires to the universe. But the law of attraction brought that to me. It's amazing. I can give you example after example. Next, we have the law of correspondence, which says your outer world is really a reflection of your inner world. Even the Bible says, by their fruits you shall know them. The car you drive, the house you live in, the clothes you wear, and so forth is really a reflection of your inner state. So don't concentrate on doing, but rather on being. Change yourself from the inside out. And in other words, don't polish the mirror, but change the reflection. Change your thoughts. Know your full potential. I want you to see it. Really see it with your mind's eye. Because sometimes, especially with crisis, with all the things going on in today's world, opportunity comes for those who seek it. But it just may require a different perspective, a different view. And finally, I'd like to briefly mention the law of substitution. There are so many more laws to discuss, but for time's sake, we're going to end with the law of substitution. And it says that you cannot have both positive and negative thoughts occupying your subconscious at the same time. You choose the thoughts that fill your mind and your subconscious. And Brian Tracy said, your mind is like a garden, and unless you cultivate flowers, weeds are going to flourish. So to keep your mind positive, substitute positive thoughts for the negative thoughts. And speaking of feeding, I'd like to end with one of my favorite sayings. And think about all the laws we discussed. The law of control, cause and effect, belief, expectation, attraction, correspondence, substitution, and how they relate in your world today. Now, this saying comes from an ancient Cherokee chief, and I love this saying. The old Cherokee chief was teaching his grandson about life and shared, "A fight is going on inside me," he said to the boy. "It's a terrible fight, and it's between two wolves. One is evil, and he is angry, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, self-doubt, and ego. And the other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you and inside every one of us, too." And the grandson then asked his grandfather, "Which wolf is going to win?" And the chief simply replied, "The one you feed." wow, the one you feed, that's so powerful. And I can't add much to this presentation after that. So at this time, I'd like to ask if there are any questions. We have just a little bit time. Tricia, I'm not sure how much time we have any for questions or comments.
Yes, absolutely. So everyone, if you do have a question or a comment or something to share, please come off of mute. I used to unmute everyone, but then there was some weird things going on in the background. So if you would like to say something, please come off of mute. You should be able to unmute yourself.
The whole bottom line of this presentation, which once again, I thank you for allowing me to speak, is I want you to create your own destiny and master your own destiny by using these natural laws.
So Mark, there is a question from Regan. Regan, to you, which law has been most impactful to you personally?
The great question, thank you. The law of attraction, because it's brought me so many things. I talked about whether it's the penthouse in Brazil or the condominium. Actually, I'm here in Dallas. We moved here about 4 years ago from South Florida. And it's funny, the way this worked, because our daughter was a senior in high school, and for some reason she applied to UTA, University of Texas Arlington, came to Miami, went to her campus, and for whatever reason, she said, I want to go to Texas. And we weren't thinking about Texas at all. But once again, we give her credit for this. She put that out there in the universe. Let's go to Texas. And very shortly after, again, boom, here we are in Texas. So I think between the law of attraction and law of expectation, you have to expect great things, especially during these trying times with so much going on.
Go ahead. James, go ahead.
Yeah. And so you were talking about all these laws that have basically made who you are and your strategy that you have for life, and the quarantine kind of changing your perspective and of everything. And
Yes.
I imagine, like, judging by the condominium that you bought, you're pretty successful in your field. So I would like to ask you, what is the quarantine gonna impact on how you change your way of confronting normality when we return to it?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. So normality, that's kind of relative right now. Is it ever going to be back to normal? Are we ever going to shake hands again? I think so, but that could be down the road. And so how this affects is, for me personally, actually it's going to sound bad, but it's really great for us coaches during these times, because there's so many people who need help. And the level of stress and frustration, not that I want people to be stressed or frustrated, but has gone up. And so we, through the FocalPoint model and through our experience, we're able to guide people through what can be the insanity of the business world, and what's the insanity of what's going on in the world with the coronavirus and everything else. And so it really allows us and tells us to listen better and to see who's stressed. If I have just a minute, one other quick story talking about that. I mentioned that we moved to Parkland, Florida. Remember what happened in Parkland 3 years ago? There was a shooting there, and where 17 or 21 people, kids and teachers were killed. And the shooter was in the same grade as my son. And I asked my son, did you know the shooter? He said, no. And so then we saw the news coverage where the shooter was going in the courtroom and all. And then he said, yeah, I did know him. I saw him every day. He was sitting against the wall when I came in. He seemed to be a loner and nobody was talking to him. And so then the what ifs started going through my mind. What if somebody had just given him the universal sign of acknowledgement, acceptance, a smile? What if someone had said hello to him? Would that catastrophe had happened? I don't know. We really can't speculate, can't really say. But it made me more alert, and I'm more astute into looking for people who are sitting alone by themselves, and just offering that smile, offering a kind word. And that's my message to everyone else. Just let's take care of each other and look for that.
That's great, Mark. Thank you so much for the messages. I love the law of attraction because I like to surround myself with people like me or people that I want to be like. So I think the law of attraction is one of the most important to myself. Thank you for that wonderful information. So here's Mark's contact information. If you would like to take that down, I would also ask Mark if you would just put your contact information into the chat window so people
Okay.
can copy it down from there as well. And we are going to allow our next speaker, Mr. Eddie Ross, to talk to us today about the 3 types of problems we face in the world and how that relates to what's going on today. So Eddie, if you would take over the screen and introduce yourself, let everybody know where you're living, because I'm sure when you open your mouth, they're gonna know that you're not from Texas, but we still love you like a Texan.
All right, thank you. I'm hoping everybody can hear me all right. And yes, well, I'm living proof that you don't have to be a Texan to be part of the Texas Leadership Network. And one of the things that I really appreciated Mark's talk, and one of the things that helps us to reflect during this kind of challenging time, is there are always new possibilities. So for example, I'm talking to you from my office here in North Dallas, but I could be setting myself, hang on a second, I'm just trying to do something here. I could go back to where I grew up, there you go. Or maybe I could talk to you from a lovely field like this, which just looks like pretty much a Texan field, or maybe I should talk to you from the jungle. And here we have this opportunity made by Zoom to essentially present to you from anywhere we like. So there's always something that we can do different. Here's another field, that's rather a nice one, isn't it? Here, this one maybe is more popular with and more thematic. I'm going to take you back to my office. I was also hearing the other day that presenting from one's office allows people to have a look at what is behind you and gather some sort of idea of what kind of person you might be. So I'll leave you to have a look around my office while I'm talking. So I'm going to be talking to you today about a framework for thinking about problems, which I found very, very interesting and useful during my life. I'm gonna share my screen and just hold on a second, 2 seconds. I'll do that effectively. Okay, hope you can all see that. And that is essentially the kind of framework for the 3 types of problem that I'm going to talk about: critical problems, tame problems, and wicked problems. And just about everything we face in the world can be kind of categorized by these 3. And I think this is a very useful way to think about how we tackle each one and the kind of response that we have and what kind of leadership is required in each case. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'll come back at the end, and we can be reminded of those. So let's take the critical problem first. So just imagine that you are in your office. You've been working extremely hard. You're on the 11th floor, and you can smell something a little bit strange. It smells a bit like smoke, but you keep on working because actually it's a busy day and you've got a lot to do. And then it gets a little bit stronger, that smell, and suddenly a man bursts into the room, and he's wearing kind of overalls and a yellow hat and a respirator, and he pulls off his respirator and he says, "Quick, everybody, the place is on fire, run, you've got to go down the steps, throw your shoes off and start running." What would you do? Would you say, "Oh, excuse me, who are you and why are you telling us to do this?" Or would you say maybe, "Hey, could we sit down and have a little brainstorm about this? Can we work out what kind of a fire it is, or whether it's likely to reach this floor within half an hour? I think there are a lot of things to think about here, and I'd like to go through them before we actually go ahead and run." No, I don't think you'd do that. I think you would start running, because you would realize that you were in a situation that required a very quick response. And that is a critical problem. And there are many of those, and you can immediately imagine those kind of things. And there are many critical problems that we face also in our business environment, where we need to act very quickly. We haven't got time to analyze everything. And if we do start analyzing everything, we may actually get burned. hopefully not physically, but certainly we know that if we don't move quickly, there can be issues. And I think recently the coronavirus experience has brought for many businesses the need to act very quickly and without the normal level of analysis that perhaps we normally use. Let's think about tame problems. So tame problems are fundamentally anything that's been done before and that can be analyzed and thought about. So for example, the most simple example I can think of a tame problem would be, how do we make a good cup of coffee? Over the years, we've experimented with that, with different machines, how much sugar we like, how much milk we like, do we prefer cream? We come to live in the United States and discover they have a completely different kind of coffee, so we have to adapt and we have to do something different. So that's one example of a very simple tame problem. We can go right up the scale and think about somebody flying a fighter jet. That's a tame problem as well, or somebody doing a brain operation. Because the reason that medical science today is so much more advanced than it was 30 years ago, or 60 years ago, or 100 years ago, is because we've been constantly able to analyze and think through and improve the processes and the procedures that make modern medicine everything it is today. And that will continue on. So people that do brain operations constantly work together to improve how they do it and how they can make it better. So a tame problem is anything that can be thought through and analyzed. And in the business world, that is a tremendous amount of what we all do every single day. We constantly work on stuff that can be improved, and we're constantly working to improve it. So in the context of a factory, how can we produce more every single day? In the context of a retail business, how can we make sure that our customers serve more effectively and we make more money? And we keep on trying new things and analyzing and feeding back and using data to do that. So, excuse me. So a tame problem can be a very, very complicated problem, but it can also be analyzed, it can be tracked, it can be repeated. Wicked problems are somewhat different. Wicked problems are complex, not just complicated. And one of the reasons that wicked problems are interesting is they very often don't have a solution. They can be improved or they can be worked on, but they're those kind of knotty, strategic sort of problems that fundamentally there is no real answer to, but if we all work together, maybe we can somehow or other get to a better place. So an example I often use of a wicked problem is the problem in the whole world of obesity, a growing problem all over the world. More and more people are overweight. So is there a nice quick fix solution to that? Can we study it like a tame problem? Well, it has many, many little tame problems within it that we can work on different things. But if you look at politicians, they'll stand up and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that to fix obesity. They're never going to fix obesity. Obesity is all about the individual. It's all about the companies. It's all about it's about Africa. It's about USA. It's about Asia. It's about absolutely everybody in the world. What we eat, how it gets produced, how do we pay for it, etc., etc. So it's a very, very complex problem. And what you need in order to tackle a complex problem is totally different from what you need to tackle a tame problem or wicked problem. It's a totally different type of thinking, and it's about moving things forward effectively. So when we think about the three different types of problem, let's think about the kind of leader that is most effective. So in the case of a critical problem, you need a commander. You need somebody who's going to make a decision quickly. And in a business environment, that's extremely important right now. In the example of the fire, you need the police chief or the fire chief to come in and tell everybody what to do. And everybody responds very quickly to that because they know that the critical problem is extremely urgent and important. In the case of the tame problem, you need a manager. You need somebody who's going to help you to manage and improve the processes and keep on looking back with great patience and studying how we can do this particular thing better. In the case of wicked problems, you need a leader, because the leader needs to recognize that their job is not to tell people what to do, but it's to ask great questions, and it's to give people a direction to move towards where they can get all their different tame problems and they can help them to all add up to something which is actually going to improve the way that things are. So in the case of the critical problems, we're looking for essentially often a physical response, certainly an urgent response. In the case of the tame problem, we're looking for a rational response. And very often in the case of wicked problems, we're looking for an emotional response. So I'm going to give you a quick example from an office. Typical office, it's around 9:30 in the morning. Everybody's working away pretty hard, about 30 or 40 people in a room. Suddenly they hear the door bang, and in comes the boss, striding through the office. And it's pretty obvious he's not in a great mood. Everybody's been working away on all their stuff. And he kind of shouts at the top of his voice, bring me a cup of coffee. I want that press release. I want that press release on my desk by 11 a.m. Otherwise, we'll see what happens. And suddenly everybody starts running around, getting organized, getting him his cup of coffee, going, oh, quickly, hurry up with the sugar. You know, he likes his sugar, whatever it is. And they start writing the press release and they start bringing him the first draft. And finally, we get to about 11 o'clock, 11:30, and he approves it and he marches out of the door again, off to an important meeting. And as he goes out, he turns and says, finally, we're pleased to see we've got some work done in this office today. So what's actually happened here? You've got a big boss whose job is to work on the wicked problems. His job is to think about where's this office going to be in 3 years from now. His job is to ask great questions and make sure people have got everything they need to do their jobs. The managers are all hard at work. They're dealing with the tame problems of that business every single day. And they were all pretty busy when he arrived. He arrived and he turned a tame environment into a critical problem, which was we have to deliver this press release by 11 a.m. And this happens all the time in business because the leaders of the business need to be thinking about the wicked problems. They're the ones whose responsibility is to know where we're going to be in 3 years. How do we tackle these issues that are facing us? What about the competition? What are they doing? What's happening to the market? That's not the job of the managers. The manager's job is to keep on doing as best they possibly can with what the current situation is. And ideally, you avoid critical situations. But when the critical situation does come, the leader needs to step into that commander role on occasions and just say, guys, normally I'd like to go through all sorts of processes to decide, but you know what? We're under such pressure, I'm afraid we're going to have to cut 50% of the workforce next week. And that's what's been happening in the coronavirus environment. So I also wanted just to put this into that context of what we're facing now, all of us, and so many businesses with what coronavirus has brought, in terms of the challenges at all three levels, at the critical level, having to make very quick decisions, which might or might not be right, but probably are needed one way or the other. How does that affect the normal processes? So Mark gave an example of people dressing up in interesting outfits to deliver the stuff to the car. That's a great example of quickly adapting a tame problem, which has been run the same old way for years and years and years, and doing something quickly to try and make that process a little bit better under the circumstances. And then the wicked problem is, you know, is my business going to survive? Do I need to do something that I've never ever thought of doing before, like merge with another company, or do something completely different? And you know, I think that these are, I've always found this to be a very useful way to think about the types of problems we face. And to Mark's point, I'll kind of conclude the speech with, it's all about us. It's about how we approach things. So the more we work on our own self-awareness of how we're approaching different problems, the more we try not to be like that boss who turns his tame problem office into a critical problem where everybody, all they're doing is focusing their attention. In terms of the environment, it's no different from running out the door because you think the place is on fire. It's a waste of everybody's time. And I think that as we face the coronavirus situation, it's useful to think as leaders of different organizations, what is it that I need to respond at this particular moment? What is the response that I need, that my people need, that I need, my family need, that is going to get me through and make sure that in 2 years from now, whatever it is, I'm still here. So I'm just going to conclude by sharing my screen again. Hopefully that's there. And just to conclude by summing up what I've been talking about. The three types of problem: the critical problems, that need a commander who provides solutions. They're looking for a physical, definitely an urgent response. There's tame problems, which are complicated, but which can be analyzed, they can be reproduced, they can be done over and over again, and we can look to ways to improve them. And we need a manager who really helps to organize all that and to analyze it with great care. And we're looking for a rational response. We're looking for everybody to get stuck in and think about how we can make those tame problems more effective and better solved. And then the wicked problems are these complicated, complex problems that don't really have 100% solution. There's no necessarily a right or wrong. We can't control what the competition are going to do. We can't control what the coronavirus is going to do. And we need a leader who asks questions and helps other people to find the right answers. And we need the emotional response of, yep, we've got the right leader helping us along the way. And even if we think about the coronavirus in these terms, we need to make critical decisions every day in hospitals. What do we do? Do we give this person a ventilator? Do we not give this person a ventilator? Do we need to call for help, etc., etc.? If we don't have those doctors making those decisions and nurses, people will literally die. And so they have called upon them to do it all the time. At the same time, a hospital is full of tame processes. How do we manage this? How do we get this done more quickly and more effectively? When do we make the decision to take somebody off a ventilator and give it to somebody else? The more that can be a tame problem, the better it's going to be for everybody and stop being a critical one. And finally, we need that leadership. I'm most definitely not going to make any comment on the leadership that we're seeing in any country at the moment. But the most important question is, are we getting the right emotional response? We know where we're going with this. We know how we're leading forward. We don't know the outcome. We don't know how long it's going to take before this goes away, but we have confidence that we're being well led and that we're going to end up in a good place. All right, that is what I would like to share with you today. And I'd be delighted to have any questions. I haven't been reading your question. I've seen the things kind of buzzing in on the right-hand side here, but I can't read and talk at the same time. So if anybody would like to ask anything or make a comment, please do.
Well, Eddie, we do have a question, again, from Reagan. Hopefully, Reagan, I'm saying that right. What prevents a manager from growing into a leader? That's a great question.
Yes, I think that is a good question. And I think the absolute answer is that sometimes we need to be managers and sometimes we need to be leaders. And having a clear idea in our minds about the difference is important. And it might be that in any given day, we're both of those things, maybe many, many times over. And sometimes we need to be a commander too. But I think that all managers should also be leaders. It depends on perhaps their job. 90% of the time is to analyze processes and to look for improvements. But every now and again, they need to get all their team together and give them a pat on the back and talk to them about how they see things developing. People need that context, and that's where leaders come in and develop that emotional response. I don't know if that is a good answer for you, Regan.
That's great, Eddie. What a wonderful message. Thank you for sharing that with us. If anyone has a question, a comment, or just any bit of information that you would like to share with the group, please come off of mute. We're about 10 minutes away from the top of the hour, so open discussion, questions is okay. That's why we're here.
Eddie, I have a question for you. In a more personal, for a more personal answer, yourself, as you've progressed in your career, you've probably had moments where you were more of a commander, more of a manager and more of a leader, and it's probably been oscillating constantly. How would you say that, what were the most important factors that came into your life that made you into the better leader that has been taking you throughout your career?
Okay, thanks for the question. I think, honestly, it all boils down to people. That if you are responsible for people, obviously we're responsible for ourselves, first of all, and we need to be good managers, leaders, and commanders of ourselves at times. But I think as one grows and becomes responsible for people, one realizes that people do need all of these kind of elements to be taken into account. And I think that really great leaders have always been also good managers, and when they're needed to be, they're also good commanders. So I think as one goes through life, one builds up self-awareness, and one builds up greater empathy around the way that the world reacts to us. So yes, it's a constant learning process, and one that has definitely not yet ended.
Hey, Eddie, I'm just curious, Art here. So put aside for a minute the house on fire problems, but really just tame and wicked. You know, it occurs to me that sometimes tame problems can grow into wicked problems through inattention, mismanagement, and so on. Or how do we, as leaders, how do we know when we're facing a tame problem versus a wicked problem? I'm just curious if you have any thoughts about how to you know, kind of identify a problem early in its evolution, so you can kind of approach it with the right energy and passion.
Yeah, so I think that context is incredibly important for that. And so you're absolutely right that what seem to be tame problems can become wicked problems. So if you just kind of give a silly example, like say a cookie factory. If we have a cookie factory, and I'd call it a biscuit factory, if we have a cookie factory and we're producing chocolate chip cookies year after year, and we constantly are enhancing our recipe and constantly are working on the consistency of our cookies. But what we haven't realized is that out there in the world, people actually want jam donuts now, and that chocolate chip cookies just don't cut it anymore. So the wicked problem is that actually we're producing the wrong thing. And the tame problems we've been working on to make the best possible chocolate chip cookies, unfortunately, have been leading us down the wrong path. And I think that's where the distinction lies, which is that you know, of course there is a blurring of these kind of things constantly. And what I think is really useful about the framework is to step back and say, if I just keep on doing this and doing this better, will I actually be successful, or do I need to think about what I'm doing? And that actually comes back to the why question. So often companies, I don't know if guys on the call have heard of the single loop and double loop theory that was put forward by Chris Argyris in the 1960s. He said people think and companies think in the single loop all the time, which is they say, how can we improve what we do? How can we make it better? Let's keep on making it better. Let's keep on making it better. And then he said the double loop was, why do we do this? Should we be doing something else? And that's really fundamentally the same kind of thing. And of course, the why question is so much more challenging, which is why many leaders will prefer to come down from the wicked problem and stick with the how do we improve the cookies. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well said. Yeah. So, so as leaders in our businesses, we have to oscillate between managing improvement, working on the tame things, and making sure we put aside time to kind of even question why we exist, what we do, how it adds value. Those are wicked questions we have to always answer.
I think that's right. And I also think that we have to be careful. If our job is to manage the tame problems and improve the processes, we don't want to be spending our whole time kind of dreaming about how we think we should be doing something else. That is legitimate, but it's not necessarily legitimate for the manager whose job is to improve the tame process. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think that question of leadership versus management comes in.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, what a great discussion. Eddie, thank you so much for the wonderful information. Mark and Eddie, you guys did an amazing job bringing us real live info that we can use in our businesses right now, whether we're managers, leaders, or the worker, right? This stuff is really important. I would like to share one more thing with all of you before we part today, and we can still have a bit of a discussion, but I would like to introduce the Texas Leadership Network and let you know where all of the coaches are. These are the 10 coaches that belong inside the network. We all collaborate. We're here every 2 weeks on Thursday at noon to present information that is pertinent and digestible for you as the business owner or people who we are working with today. When I wrap all of this up, I did record. I'll send you the link to the recording so that you can go back and review the information. I will also send you a very short feedback form. It only has 4 questions. We would love to hear from you on what did you like about the meeting today or the presentation today, and what would you like for us to present to you in the future. because you're our audience and you're the ones that really drive the content behind what we're delivering. All right, so if anybody would like to make any parting comments or has any questions, we'll open it up. We've got about 4 minutes left before the top of the hour. Thank you all for joining us, and we'd love to hear from you before you go.
Hello. Hi, I have one quick question for Eddie. Do you think leaders are born or made? Thank you.
Great question. I think we'll have to go for the both. I think that that certainly some people do have a greater capacity to be great leaders. Perhaps they're born with more charisma, that kind of thing, some of these intangible things that help people to become leaders. But there's no substitute for hard work. And I think that the great thing is to be working on ourselves over time to develop ourselves. Mark's speech was such a great example of ways in which we're thinking about this and improving our abilities to become good leaders.
I'm sorry, who asked that question?
His name is Carlos.
Carlos, I'm just curious, do you have some thought in your mind? Are leaders born or made?
I think, like Eddie says, it's both aspects, but I think that probably the best leaders would have to be those that are born leaders. I would have to say.
Thank you.
Hey, Mark, can you give a little bit of feedback on if say we have someone we're working with that is really kind of self-sabotaging in their self-talk and their beliefs, and they say, I'm trying to shift my mindset, but I don't really know how. Can you give me some practical advice for that person?
Well, first of all, when someone says I'm trying, that's a negative in itself. That's saying I'm not going to do it. I'm trying to do it. My advice would be start the day off with positive affirmations. Today's going to be a fantastic day. Something great is going to happen today. I'm a great leader. I'm a great boss. I'm whatever. Just starting off on the right foot with the right positive affirmations.
Okay.
And did that answer your question?
Yeah, it's just, I think this person's very practical in their mind, you know, and it's like they want something tangible they can do. So I think that's good advice. Thank you.
When I think anytime you hear them say something negative, well, once again, that really does go right to your subconscious and it sabotages yourself. Even the way you answer the phone, how are you doing today? I'm okay, I'm fine, all right. I would always like to teach everyone, you start off the phone conversation, how are you today? I'm fantastic, I'm terrific, I'm wonderful. And that's going to make a big difference with customers too, because you're going to get their attention. Wow, you must really be having a great day. And if you are having a lousy day, you don't want to lie, how are you doing today? It's unbelievable, because that could go either good or bad. So your words have so much power.
Chelsea, have you tried to do like a DISC personality profile exercise with that person?
I have not. I haven't went that route. I do a lot of false belief clearing and things like that with my clients. I do a lot of mindset work with them. I think that she is needing a little bit more practical things. So that may be a great idea.
It's great to understand yourself better. The more you understand about yourself, it can explain how you feel about your relationship with others.
Yeah.
Chelsea, just one phrase that you might use, because when I hear, you know, I'll try. So when we're working with clients and someone says, well, you know, I'll try. So I refuse to give you permission to fail. You will, right? And that reinforces kind of the verbiage. When someone says you try, if you as the coach or you as the person who's working with them accept that as an answer, you've essentially given them permission to fail.
This is, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, this is Sergio, and I just wanted to comment in regards to Mark. He is actually my personal coach, my business coach, and I've been working quite a lot in what he just mentioned about starting the day. Life's beautiful, the day is amazing. How are you doing? Fantastic. And the other day I had a conference call with around 35 different people, and everybody's just talking about how their business are doing. And when it was my time to speak, I did start with like, everything's fantastic. And, you know, and I raised everybody's spirit, you know, this shall pass, and business will be better than ever. And the economy will be stronger than ever, because we really had to have that optimism and that positive thought to be able to overcome what we're going through. You know, so much is going on, so much is going on, and so many businesses are being affected, that if we are not positive, then nobody wants to do business with somebody that doesn't reflect that, you know, success, that optimism. I am a financial advisor myself, and I don't think anybody will just be, why should I even talk to you about my investments or give you my money, my lifetime savings, if you are not like, everything's going to be beautiful, everything's going to be great, you know, everything's fantastic. So I've been implementing that every day since I wake up, and I had my best month ever since I started with Edward Jones.
That's wonderful, Sergio. Yes, and that goes back to the law of attraction, right? That what you're putting out there is what you're receiving back. That's amazing. So I don't mean to cut anybody short. We are so thankful that you guys joined us today. We're at the top of the hour. We would love to see you back in 2 weeks. We'll have some new topics for you, and be on the lookout for the replay and a feedback form from us. So on behalf of the Texas Leadership Network, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Tricia.
Bye, everyone.